In our modern elementary schools, physical education programs are conducted regularly with the development of efficient, effective, and expressive movement patterns as a major objective. Opportunity for observation as well as participation is essential in understanding movement patterns. Because children do like to move, they need little encouragement. Yet they need much guided practice in creating the best patterns for each situation. Some enjoy running. Kent enjoys this kind of turning pattern. Some like jumping, punching, kicking, turning, twisting, or running.
Each afternoon across the U.S., 15 million children, more than a quarter of our nation's youth, are alone and unsupervised after school. In Philadelphia, this problem is even more extreme. Recess, physical education, and after-school programs are at an all-time low. Philly kids are forced inside due to a lack of programming and unsafe neighborhood conditions. This leaves our city's youth with one of the highest obesity, dropout, and crime rates in the country. Let's give our children a place to play and a chance at a brighter future.
I have been a resident of Philadelphia in South Philly for close to 40 years now. And I can tell you in all honesty that I have been a personal witness to the closures of schools, free libraries, recreation centers, gyms.
Philadelphia's parks and recreation have been underfunded really for decades. They've been kind of the poor stepchild of the city of Philadelphia. They're there, and if there's money, okay, we'll invest in them. But it hasn't been always a priority. There's a lot that's wonderful about parks and recreation in Philadelphia. We have a real host of amenities. We have more swimming pools than most cities in the country. However, because of lack of funding, they are now open, I believe, 6 weeks instead of 12. So that's a problem. There are rec centers that have water coming through the lights. You know, there's just a lack in the maintenance of infrastructure of our buildings. And there's a lack of staff.
I know a center that the roof leaks when it rains. Kids are still playing on concrete gym floors, which is a hazard because it affects, number one, their bodies. When they're running and jumping on that court, it messes up their ankles, their knees, their lower back. And in one case, we actually had a kid slip. We have central air conditioning at centers that haven't worked in the last 6 or 7 years. The city has underfunded the recreation department. And because of that, they haven't been able to keep up with a lot of the repairs that community people ask for.
I can say unequivocally that there are less resources, less opportunities for physical activities, recreation centers in South Philly than there is in Center City or Chestnut Hill areas of Philadelphia.
There are a lot of programs and activities that just quite frankly and honestly poor young people have never experienced and will never experience. And I think that is sad because I think that there's a lot that young people will miss out on because of finance. And for me, finance should never be a barrier to what a young person is exposed to.
A third of schools in the highest poverty areas in the country tend not to offer recess. So kids who are most likely not to be involved in recess tend to be African American, tend to be from low-income backgrounds, and tend to be from urban centers, large urban centers like Philadelphia. A school that I work with in Southwest Philadelphia, an elementary school with students in grades K through 6, hasn't had gym for 4 years because they didn't have a gym teacher. That was one of the positions they were not able to afford.
Nationally, when you look at the patterns of what's available in neighborhoods, you see really stark disparities in terms of what's available. There may be parks there, but they may not be in a condition where parents feel safe letting their kids go out. And I think this especially affects girls because parents are more likely to keep girls at home, I think for a lot of reasons, but if they don't feel it's safe, they feel the boys can fend for themselves a little bit more.
First of all, we're here at the Ralph Brooks Tot Lot in South Philadelphia, 20th and Tasker Street. This wall was erected over 20 years ago, and the list of names that you see there are young people that have been a victim of violent crime in an area and they've actually lost their lives as a result of that.
Compared to national standards, that is 60 minutes a day of moderate to vigorous physical activity, less than 1 in 4 Philadelphia children met that criteria. So that means that 61% of the country is doing better than children in this environment. I think when you look at how come kids in urban environments may be more at risk for obesity, certainly physical inactivity is one. And it's not just the lack of physical activity, it's actually the high prevalence of sedentary behavior, so things like screen time. So you can imagine if you're a kid and you're concerned about safety and your parents are concerned about safety, where's the safest place you can be? At home, on your sofa, watching TV. So you can be entertained and your parents know exactly where you are. Well, it turns out that there's a very linear relationship between childhood obesity and the number of hours of TV viewing per day.
Kids start off being active, naturally wanting to be active. So it's the situations we put them in that cause them to become less and less active as they grow older. And I think the time around puberty and entry into adolescence, it's like there's just a drop in activity for girls, and the kinds of things that girls like to do may be less likely to involve the really active sports. And so you have to now create some artificial situations to get kids active and get them away from their cell phones and get them away from the TV. And some of the things that would work if you had the resources to do them are like dance classes. Sports are great, but dancing is for everybody.
You defund the schools. You take away resources for after-school programs, music programs, athletics programs, arts programs. If a young person finds his or her school an absolute bore, it's not dropping out. And I think an organization here in the city called Youth United for Change coined the term of being pushed out.
So students involved in extracurricular activities definitely have more focus, they have more organizational skills and time management skills. We believe that this does impact what they're able to do in the classroom. There are times when a student is forbidden to participate in extracurricular because he's not doing what he needs to do academically, but when given a chance, when given the incentive, when presented with the notion of, all right, listen, I'm going to give you a break and let you participate in this program or on this team, and I'm going to give you sort of a probationary status and give you a couple of weeks, it's exactly the carrot that's been needed to lift the student up academically.
My grades were typically better during football season. You had to have a certain GPA in order to play football, and if you didn't have, when grades came out, if your grades were so low, there was a lot of guys who, when it came time for the playoffs and different things like that, they had to sit the playoffs out because they were academically ineligible. Well, I can tell you, I know a lot of my friends who, they did their work, and I hate to say it, but they did their work just so they could play football. And you know, some people would say, well, you should do your schoolwork for the love of learning. And I would agree. But in this day and time, if the football field is going to keep little Johnny in that school seat, let football keep little Johnny in the school seat. You know.
Well, I think the main key with basketball is just like doing your books, you got to stay committed to it. You got to keep doing it, you know what I mean? Like the book situation, you got to stay on top of your books to graduate. Just like if you want to play basketball and make it, you know what I mean, like your second priority, then you know that could help push you forward to help graduate and then successfully making it to college somewhere, because scholarships are what we need. You know, everybody doesn't have, you know, certain types of money to help pay for college and school and things like that. So playing basketball could definitely help push as well as your books to push you through high school and help you graduate.
There was some backwards planning involved in terms of our trying to understand what college admissions officers are looking for. And in having conversations with admissions officers, one of the things that we concluded was that students need to have a real history of experiences in extracurricular offerings. And so for that reason, we wanted to make sure that it was an integral part of what our students experienced here at Boys Latin of Philadelphia. So from a practical side, we knew that if college admissions and success in college was our goal, then extracurricular offerings had to be a part of that plan. And one of the things that we first recognized with crew, for instance, is that if you go down to the river and you go down to the boathouses and you take a look at the young people who are out there on the water, it's almost a guarantee that everyone in one of those boats is going to be going to college.
The city of Philadelphia is saying enough to a cycle of violence driven by crowds of young teenagers using social media to link up, form a mass, and cause chaos. It's a sinister version of so-called flash mobs that in most cases are harmless and whimsical, but for some reason in the city of brotherly love, flash mobs is just another term for loosely organized violence.
There's no real pattern to it, but it's very troubling, and we've had some people get some pretty serious injuries.
And so today, as evening approached in Philadelphia, a new measure was planned. Children under 18, teens like these, were told that as of 9 p.m., they would have to be off the streets downtown.
Having curfew for young people, putting up all these punitive measures for young people that are hanging out on the street and getting into trouble, you know, in gang-like or gang-related types of activities or crime. We're just putting a Band-Aid on a situation, right? We've been bleeding the community. We've been taking away the resources. So where do these young people go?
One of the sort of hidden challenges in getting, say, black boys and young men active is that activity could be mistaken for criminal behavior. And I face this being the mother of a now black man, and remembering when he was younger and he and his friends were running and playing in our neighborhood, which was a fairly low crime neighborhood, and the police knocked on the door of our house and they said, we saw 2 black kids run in here. And my husband said, and? Well, we think a crime was committed. Well, was a crime committed? Well, we're not sure, but we saw them running near the video store. So it's that kind of experience that sticks with you. And, you know, you give advice. I give advice to my son. Don't run. You know, make sure you don't look like you're doing anything wrong.
My grandmother used to say in Spanish to me that a mind that is idle is the devil's workshop. If you are not involved in something, you oftentimes have opportunities to get involved in something that's not positive. And there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes in life, and my theory is that if we can align kids up with positive things, the more positive things that they have an opportunity to make a choice. I think if you give most kids, 99% of kids, a choice in the world on what to do, they'll always pick that positive thing. But if they don't have any choices and they're just kind of always seeing something that's negative, then an opportunity to participate in that is more prevalent.
You know, I'm very supportive of the POW program, Police Athletic League, and I know right now in my district there are two functioning ones, and I can tell you that the police, you know, I talk to the police department regularly about it, and they'll tell you when these programs are working, the crime statistics for after school dramatically decrease.
Well, recreation has definitely helped me personally because I was in, I think, 5th grade one time, and I had got jumped on by 4 kids, and it kind of hurt me, so things went how they did, and I just felt like getting in trouble just wasn't the thing for me. Dealing with other people's stupidity just wasn't for me, so my dad put the basketball in my hand, so ever since he gave me the opportunity to play, I just been in the gym, doing my schoolwork, just trying to go on the right path, because seeing kids out here around my age dying, getting arrested, going to jail, like it's just a different lifestyle that I want to choose for myself. So anything that young kids want to do, just I encourage them to just keep their minds into it and just keep their motivation and dedication to anything that they want to do, because life on the streets is not where you want to be, and life in jail is definitely not anything that you want to deal with.
There is a willingness and an understanding, I think, in other cities that parks and recreation must be a priority, that you can't choose between parks and recreation and bridges and homelessness and education and any of the other pressing issues that a city deals with. That we need to invest in all of them, and that parks and recreation are as important a piece of infrastructure as these other things are. So last year's increase of $2.675 million was a wonderful symbolic vote in favor of the importance of supporting this department, and also in the importance of keeping promises, because the mayor had proposed and city council had passed an increase for parks and recreation back in fiscal year 09. And finally in fiscal year 13 we started to get back some of the funding. But we're still behind where we were supposed to be in fiscal year 09. And that's why this year the Philadelphia Parks Alliance is leading a campaign to get back an additional $5 million of what was promised in fiscal year 09.
You have to have a sustained reinvestment in the community, right? So the library that you took away, bring it back. The rec center that you closed, bring it back. You know, bring back after-school programs, bring back after-school jobs.
Recreation centers are the lifelines of communities throughout the city of Philadelphia. It's where young people gather and learn their skills and develop their skills. And had it not been for recreation centers, free recreation centers where they can come and get some instructions from adults, a lot of these young people would not have achieved the goals and the things that they're doing today. For instance, Gene Banks, who was an All-American out of West Philadelphia High School, went to Duke University and played in the NBA with the Chicago Bulls beside Michael Jordan. He started right here at this recreation center. And I could just keep going with names of ball players and students, young people that have come through this playground and taken part in the programs. A young man named Raymond Maples recently was accepted, played football here, went on to West Catholic under a scholarship, and now he's at West Point. He'll be graduating next year. So we've produced quite a few products through the rec department. And had there not been recreation centers, okay, none of these young people probably, we don't know where they would have been. So recreation is, like I said, it's definitely the lifeline for young people in any community.
I think one of the things that we can't codify is the financial benefit that they have. And a lot of times that is a reason why a lot of these programs get cut, because there's no dollar and cent a reinvestment for the money that we're spending. But I can tell you as a living witness that those things are more valuable than the dollars we spend on them. So when we begin to invest in our young people and they feel the investment, they'll pay great dividends.